1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. Dude, my count, my tempo. Yo, ho, ho, ho. Amateurs, man. Hello. You're listening to the John Huff Podcast. Oh, yay. Okay, here's what I think we do. They're all focused on DC right now, okay? They're all focused on California. They're all focused on Florida, Mar-a-Lago, golf resorts. All their backs are turned, man. They're all looking the other way. So here's what I say we do. We annex New York. Hang with me, man. We'll just slip a note under the border, right? And the note will say we got healthcare, we got roads you can drive on, and we'll give them some flags, and under cover of darkness, they just put them up, you know? Empire State Building, wherever they go. Rochester, Binghamton. Put up those flags, man, and in the morning, they'll just be with us. And everybody will be happy, right? And what that does is instantly it brings 3 more NHL teams to Canada. We get the Rangers, we get the Islanders, we get the Sabres. And the Sabres may actually be good this year for a change, you know? Not a bad time to be pulling them over onto our side. And you know, I say 3 teams, but in reality, I think pretty quickly it'll be 4, all right? Because I feel like New Jersey's going to fall pretty much immediately. I think they'll just come right over, they'll bring the Devils with them. And this will be the beginning, kids, of a kind of wave that goes down, kind of the eastern part of the United States. Because I think Pennsylvania will come over, we'll get the Flyers, and we'll get the Pens, you know, out of Pittsburgh. And this Canadian division they're proposing will suddenly, you know, become a lot bigger, a lot beefier, and that's cool. But we're not going to bring Boston, because nobody wants freaking Boston. And in not bringing over what we don't want anyway, we make the people happy in Quebec. So that's a win-win, right? And then I think eventually the Capitals will come too, and it won't take much, evidently. I think we got to just walk in. I think that's all there is to it. You just walk in, right? And the whole part of the eastern part of the states will just fall like a row of dominoes, man. And that is the Domino Theory in action. Do you know about the Domino Theory, kids? Let's open up our history Bibles and turn to the book of the Cold War. We'll go back to 1950s here, back to the 1950s, post-World War II. President Eisenhower, everybody likes Ike, espoused this theory that if one country fell to communism, anywhere in the world, the countries next to it would fall as well. So in a place like Southeast Asia, let's say, were communism to overrun, say, Vietnam, all of the countries around Vietnam would immediately fall to communism as well, and it would just keep spreading. And the countries would fall like a row of dominoes all the way to Japan, Australia, New Zealand. And then, before you know it, the commies are walking up Main Street, USA. And this is what I see happening, all right? We're going to call it the Maple Scare. Slip a note under the border, annex New York, and they all fall, man. Jersey, Pennsylvania, all the way to DC and maybe beyond. If we want them. Now, Canadians have been lobbying for a long time for our government to buy an island. You know, we spend a lot of time in Mexico, Dominican Republic, Cuba, Jamaica, you know. A lot of Canadians, a lot of snowbirds, a lot of sun worshippers like to get out of our interminable winter, fly down, spend a week in the sunshine drinking the margaritas, you know. But our government should buy an island. We should buy one of those places, man, so we can move there easily, you know. None of this international stuff, no permits, just move, you know. And I think that's a great idea, and I think as the Maple Scare spreads down the eastern seaboard, it might get all the way into the Caribbean, right? Then you've got like an NHL team in Cancun. Got one in Montego Bay. Who wouldn't want to play for the Montego Bay Monterreys or whatever, you know? If we could have the Seattle Kraken, why not the Montego Bay Pirates? Something like that. Can you imagine this? Can you see this world I'm imagining, you know? Because new worlds are born from the death of old worlds, kids. History has shown us this over and over and over and over again. Death of one world creates a new world, and you have the unique opportunity to create that world as it comes into being, as it's born. And I suggest Canada just annex most of North America, fix the roads, establish healthcare, build hockey arenas, right? Because there's one thing that you can be sure will not happen in a world filled with hockey arenas, and that is violence. Not trying to make light, man. Just trying to understand what on earth is going on. Now, this is not a political program. I ain't here to talk politics. I ain't here to be divisive. I ain't here to do anything more than warm your cockles, man. What we saw going on down there is definitely frightening. And, you know, people will say this is an American thing. It's a uniquely American situation with the way that country is, dating back, 400 years to kind of its underpinnings. But the reality is, Monsieur Trump is not the only leader to galvanize angry and frightened people by identifying and giving them a common enemy and promising a return to glory. Those of us who study history have seen this game before, man, and this is how it tends to end. With a bit of violence, and the best we can hope for is perhaps that it's just a bit of violence, and not Kristallnacht and World War II. You know what I'm saying? Because we don't need any more of this. The anxiety is creeping up around the world, and it's not just related to that. That just seems to be the cherry on top of this endless anxiety cake called the COVID, man. And things are locking down further here. They're now discussing curfews. Scary stuff, man. And I feel like the anxiety is beginning to spike again. I don't know if we were getting a little better or not. They eased up on some of the restrictions. And then they said, Christmas, if you're not careful, is going to make trouble, kids. And evidently a couple of people weren't careful because the cases continue to spike. And so further restrictions, further lockdowns, a sort of moderate rollout of the vaccine around here. And we are seeing stunningly poor leadership in some circles, where you've got politicians now being found out and called out for having traveled over the holidays internationally, after telling all of us to bunker down and stay home and don't go see your relatives and do not go see your family and do not enjoy Christmas in the traditional way. We have several highly placed politicians who utterly ignored the direction they've been giving to the public and went and did that stuff. And I don't know, man, all the anxiety is coming back. And I wish I had something useful to say about the anxiety, because I know what it is, man, and I know the feeling because I had it. I went through it. The summer was a rough one, and it was mostly the COVID, but for me, what set it off was all the George Floyd stuff. And so watching the riot in the Capitol this week makes me think anybody who's kind of teetering on the edge may see that and, spill over into it too. And I ain't no psychologist. I ain't a geopoliticist, and I ain't no psychologist. But I felt the anxiety, man, and that ain't a fun thing. And I wish I had something really powerful and profound to say to you if you're suffering from that right now. On a practical level, what helped me was digging into a project. Quite literally with my hands in the soil. And I built a flagstone path around the side of my house. That kind of occupied me at times last summer when the anxiety was really kicking in. So stone by stone, placing these big stones, getting them in place, getting them level, figuring out how they fit together. It occupies your mind because what the anxiety likes to do is take over your mind entirely and make it feel as though your greatest fears are either happening at this moment or are imminent. Whatever they are, as irrational as they may be. And it is not you. It is a separate you, okay? It's not the actual you who's in charge at that point. And when my anxiety thing kind of broke a little bit, when I started feeling different, what I would say is that I felt more myself. And that's the truth, man. Because it ain't you. The anxiety takes over and you think it's you, but it isn't you. All right? And then when it breaks, like a fever breaking, it's like, oh, I wasn't myself there for a minute. No, you weren't, because you weren't in charge. You weren't in charge of your thoughts, man. The anxiety was. And it can be very, very tough to distinguish that. And then when you feel yourself kind of losing the grip, losing the control, that's a really scary thing, man, because you don't know what can happen now. I'm not in charge anymore of myself, of my own thinking. You lose it, man. The horse leaves the barn. You ever seen like an old Western movie where a dude's riding a horse and he falls off the side and his foot is caught in the stirrup? And the horse is just dragging him all across the desert and he's banging into cactuses and stuff like that. That's what it feels like, man. When the anxiety takes control, it's like a horse gone wild and you are stuck in the stirrup, and it's a terrifying and powerless feeling, all right? And one of the ways I've felt and I found that helps to deal with that a little bit is to put yourself into a little project, to create something. I know that's not easy to do, and the more it can be working with your hands, I think the better. As a simple distraction. This ain't a cure, all right? This is not a cure for the anxiety, but it is a way to cope, at least temporarily, until hopefully things right themselves and you come back into line. And I got to tell you, my situation was relatively mild. I was still at least vaguely aware of what was going on, so I could reason with myself. But if you're, having real severe anxiety problems, and a lot of freaking people are, man, and justifiably so, all right? Don't get caught up here thinking you should be okay. We're normalizing what's happening right now. Okay, we've been at this for like 10 months of this weird COVID thing and travel restrictions and lockdowns, and now we're talking about armed guards roaming the streets and curfews. All right, this ain't normal, dude, all right? Don't be fooled, all right? We're normalizing this behavior. I walked into a restaurant a couple weeks ago, pick up some takeout, support local. And I walked in and there's a horseshoe bar and there's a dozen people sitting around it. There's 8 people sitting around it. In proximity, no social distancing, no masks. And I reacted immediately like, whoa, what's going on here? What? No masks? What? So immediately I felt inflamed by those people not embracing what's normal now. And they should have been, but the truth is, what we think is normal now is not normal, all right? So it's okay to not feel normal. Don't get wrapped up in this, I shouldn't be feeling anxiety, all is well, everything's fine. All is not well, everything is not fine, okay? We're still dealing with this craziness that is the coronavirus. And then we got stuff happening in the States that becomes global in terms of its influence because, America's everybody's sleeping elephant, right? It's what I think it was Trudeau said. What it was like being a Canadian is that you are a mouse sleeping on top of an elephant. Every time the elephant moves, you feel it. Well, what about if the elephant jumps up and screams and runs around in a circle with its head on fire? You're going to feel that, and that's kind of what's happening down there right now. So you put all that together, the lunacy down south, the threats of violence, coronavirus, armed guards, lockdowns, curfews. It ain't normal, man. No matter how used to wearing the mask you are, and no matter how offended you've become when you see other people not wearing the mask, can you imagine that a year ago? This is how much the world has changed in a year, and it is not normal. So don't feel bad for not feeling normal, okay? But you do have to cope, right? And, my anxiety overwhelming, yet still relatively mild, It's possible to go entirely off the rails. And if you're one of those people, see somebody, okay? See a doctor. Get your doctor to refer you to a therapist. If you are in Ontario, where I live, and I would assume the rest of Canada, you can access this for free, man. Like, you don't have to pay a therapist. You can go through OHIP in Ontario, and you can see somebody and have that covered, but go through your doctor to do it, okay? And there ain't no shame in that, man. I know this because I see a therapist, all right? Ain't no shame in it, all right? Sometimes you just got to do that. Sometimes it helps to just talk it out, man. And to express the anxiety you're feeling, right? And to express the fear and to dig into where that comes from. Like I said, man, the anxiety convinces you that your worst fears are imminent. How freaking terrifying is that? And your body doesn't know the difference. You're not in control. You're not rational. Your body just reacts to what's going on in that head. And if you're not in control of what's going on in the head, and what's going on in the head is that my worst fears are imminent or happening, how's your body going to react? You're going to have that insane adrenaline rush, and your heart's going to bang in your chest, and you're going to get sweaty, and you're going to start to tremble, and you will feel as though you are losing control of yourself. And in a sense, you are. The anxiety is staging a march on the Capitol and taking over, man. Now, I'm lucky. I've done just enough self-work, and I have a therapist, that I could kind of talk my way through it and rationalize my way through it. And I knew from experience that eventually the fever would break and I would feel like myself again, and there's still stuff to be confronted. There's still stuff to talk through, but I knew that I would resume control at a certain point for what it's worth. Maybe you don't feel that way, or maybe you don't know. So go and talk to somebody who does, all right? Get freaking help. And it is okay to not feel okay, because what's going on around us right now ain't normal, man. And it's not okay, all right? Here's the other thing, all right? Here's the other piece of it for me. So I was sitting in the backyard trying to think my way through this anxiety, having a war with my own freaking mind, is that at a certain point, you have to surrender, man. You have to let go. What is anxiety? Anxiety is all future, okay? Anxiety is all what's going to happen, what I fear will happen. And then the separate self, the real me that was kind of shoved to the outside, sitting in my backyard, which is something of a paradise, with tall, old, wise trees that I've written about before, and my cat's on a leash, and birds bravely singing, and the sun shining, and warm air. I'm sitting in a paradise. I'm sitting in the safest place I can be. So why is my heart banging in my chest? That is the anxiety being in charge of all this, man, and my body reacting to it. Fears that things will happen. Well, you have no control over what will happen. Prepare as you may. You don't know what's going to happen. Some awful thing may come and you fixate on that. What are the odds? Not very good. Some really great thing may come too, man. And if you can see this change that's happening, see this disruption to your world, see this disruption to your livelihood, to your dreams. I've watched mine go up in a kind of smoke. But if you can see that as the gateway to something really great happening, that can shift the perspective, man. If you can see that as the gateway to your life changing in ways that maybe it needs to, ways that you haven't even thought of, that could land you in a better place than you ever imagined, that's a way to reframe it, all right? Now, your body is designed to preserve itself, right? Your mind is designed to preserve itself. So it's going to fixate on the negative stuff, because it's the negative stuff that can wipe you out. It takes a bit of discipline to override that reptile brain that wants to fight or run, to override that and begin consciously to use your human, your evolved, your conscious brain to look at it and say, this good thing could happen, or this change could be wonderful, all right? or this could make a massive difference that I didn't even know I need made. And it took some discipline for me to try to do that, and it was not always successful. Maybe a 50-50 thing, right? But either way, good or bad, you have no control over that, man. And you have to, at a certain point, surrender. Let go. And the other side of letting go is having some kind of faith. Faith is a loaded word for me. I don't like to use it. Some kind of belief in consciousness, in energy, in God, if you like. I like the Tao, personally, you know? You can believe in anything, but believe in something. Something that tells you there's something beyond us that we can tap into, whether it's consciousness or whatever, even if it's just you, man, even if it's just your higher self. I think this exists, all right? I'm still coming to grips with it. I'm still learning the definition, still learning the terminology, still trying to figure out what that means. But I feel like there's a higher you. I feel like whatever is alive in you, in me, whatever is conscious is connected to something way, way bigger than we can see. And I think it ain't just us. I don't think we're machines, man. I think there's something bigger. And if you can tap into allowing the possibility of that and placing some kind of faith in it, that is maybe the biggest and most important thing, okay? And I don't know what it is. I don't know how I want to define it. I don't know how you want to define it. Do it however it makes sense to you, okay? But if you can lay down the notion that what's happening to you is ultimately going to be okay and good, and that there is some benevolence in the universe working on your behalf, or at least cares in some way, even if it's just you, even if it's just the higher spiritual part of you, that you can rely on in some way, that can ease anxiety in an enormous way, man, where you can lay it down. In the darkest parts of my little freakout this summer, I had an image in my head of kind of walking through a country field, carrying like a Santa Claus pack on my back, man. And if you could picture this, you know, climbing up a hill, kind of see this in silhouette, like the sun going down, and you just see the silhouette of a person walking up kind of a hill to where there's a massive freaking tree, you know. And it's just like a shadow walking up to this tree, carrying this sack, and then just setting the sack down. And even if you're not buying this mumbo jumbo I'm spouting right now, just try to feel that. Try to be that person in silhouette carrying that big old bag. And imagine the weight of that on you and how that feels and how difficult it is to pull that along and drag that along and carry that along and how much it pushes you down to your knees, man. Then I want you to imagine just letting it go. Just letting it fall off your back. And how does that feel? How much lighter does that feel? And that is a surrender, man. And then sitting down beneath that tree and just breathing. Just breathing. And how much better does that feel? And looking up in the sky, or closing your eyes and seeing the universe in your own freaking head, and imagining that all of that in some way is connected to you. And that by surrendering to it, it's all going to be okay. Because I got to tell you, man, the signs are everywhere. The change is coming, and it may not be all bad. Because the Buffalo Bills won a playoff game for the first time in 25 years. And if that don't tell you something new and magical is happening, then I don't know what else to say. I didn't intend to say all that, and I feel uncomfortable that I did. But it's the truth, man. And, you know, I talk a lot about this show to my therapist, actually, because I'm still trying to figure out what on earth I'm doing here and why. And, she just said to me one day, what if you just show up honestly and talk honestly? And maybe you'll feel, in that case, like the program has some kind of value. So I hope it did. But one of the other things that I've learned can be very, very helpful if you're dealing with depression, anxiety, etc., 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 if you just need a release, is the music, man. Now, if you're listening to my show, chances are you are not just a music fan, but a musician. And you know what I'm talking about. You know nothing moves you like music does, man. And the music that gets me is always the emotional music. People say to you, why do you like metal, man? Why do you like metal? It's just noise. No, it ain't, man. It's anger set to a beat. And that's an emotion, man. That's a powerful emotion. And feeling it expressed via music is a powerful expression. Ditto sadness, ditto happiness, man. As long as the music inspires some kind of emotion in me, that is a release. And a lot of what's going on right now is to do with pent-up emotion that has not been released in some constructive way. That's another side of this. Emotion is energy, man. Anxiety is energy. It's energy running through you. And if you're advanced, I'm not saying I am, but I've read people who are. If you're advanced, you can channel that energy into something really cool and something really powerful. And that's why I say jump on a project, man, because you got nothing but energy going through you. And if you can channel that, take some work, man, take some skill. I ain't really got it, but I know people who do. You can channel that energy into something great, man. I channeled it into a path. That was what was in front of me, and I found it was metaphorical, I was literally forging a new path from this kind of breakdown I was having, which is kind of cool, when you think about it. And I do like my metaphors, and I do like my nice tied-up ends. The music, man, the music can get you. And today we're talking about a record on Spinnin'. This is what I'm going to call a mighty clunky segue into Spinnin'. Because people were so thrilled with my Spinnin' Paul McCartney 3 last week. I got lots of great feedback on that. Still waiting for Paul to write, and Ringo, or Ringer. But people really liked that, and I'm pleased. So we're going to spin another record today, man. And this is a recommendation from our old pal Denny Boy. Now, Denny Boy gave me a couple of recommendations to try. One was an album called, I think they pronounce it Tak, or Tak, or Talk, Takk, by Sigur Rós. And it's a great record. They're Icelandic. The lyrics, such as they are, I think, are in Icelandic as well. Great record, really powerful, really cool. Just not quite sure how I would talk about it. And I tried, I wrote some stuff down, and I'm like, okay, this is like a ambient pop record that has a bunch of tracks on it, but you could really just play them all together. They run together that way. Not so easy for me to talk about. So it's great, though. Sigur Rós. I'm not sure how you're supposed to say that. Sigur Rós, Sigur, space, capital Ros. Really great pop band from Iceland, and super, super popular, and they fit in that kind of indie alt world, A lot of synthesizers, a lot of really epic, powerful, to see Sigur Rós live must be really an experience, man. So go check out their record. But what I'm going to focus on today is something that's a little more scrutable to me. Something a little more scrutable, recommended by Denny Boy, which is Evening Machines by Gregory Alan Isakov. Do you know Gregory Alan Isakov? Isakov, I'm not sure which way to go with that. Sounds Russian, comrades, but actually born in South Africa and then mostly raised in the United States. So I think he's billed as an American singer-songwriter, Gregory Alan Isakov. And what he does is that kind of, he's released a bunch of records, okay? The most recent is Evening Machines, and Denny Boy loves this record. Something you gotta know about Denny Boy, okay? A lot of his records that he recommends that he listens to are gonna be quiet, beautiful headphone records. What does that mean? In approaching the records for this spin-in segment, I sometimes try to think of it or frame it in terms of listening application, okay? So you got some records that are like background music at a party, you know? Or that might be your 80s pop playlist, because everybody wants to rule the world. Or it may be Poker Night with the Guys application, or it may be Broke My Heart application, or it may be Need a Distraction While I'm Cooking application, or it may be All Night Dance Party. When I was listening to the Sugar Roast record, I'm like, what is the musical application for this? What is the listening application? And with that record, it was like, oh, wait a minute. I was listening to it. It's, supremely well produced. There's a lot going on. And I'm like, oh, this is a great, headphones record. And then it just clued in, right? Because my enduring memories of Denny Boy when he's not hanging out of hotel windows, which happens way more than you might expect, is I'm in the front seat of the van touring in Europe on the passenger side, and I'm looking over my left shoulder at Denny Boy in the back seat with his headphones and his sunglasses on, listening to music. And that's hours and hours of that's what Denny Boy does. And I'm like, okay, it makes sense now. Sugar Roast is this really a producer's kind of record, flowy, a good driving record, if that's your application, not necessarily as you're driving, but as you're killing time on the road with a lot of interesting and epic kind of, dynamic music happening in your ears. And this album by Gregory Alan Isakov is kind of like that. This is not a background music record, okay? This is sort of acoustically driven singer-songwriter music. Extremely beautiful. I'm amazed by songwriters, man. Now, just yesterday, okay, skip back a few months, I borrowed a guitar from my boy Ken the Zen and had it in my mind that I might do some songwriting, which I have not really done since Hiroshima Hearts. And so I've had this guitar sitting beside me in my little studio, but I have not really picked it up. Yesterday, I picked it up, man. And I got a little amp out, and I tweaked the knobs to get some heavy-duty distortion out of it. And I plugged in that guitar, and I started to play, man. And I'm working on some little ditties, and I got some melodies come to mind, and I start banging out some chords. And then I'm like, you know what? This stuff I'm writing right now is everything I've ever written before. It's all the freaking same, man. I'm a one-trick Johnny. It's so it would seem. But I'm also not a guitar player, man, so cut me some slack. So I encounter somebody like Gregory Alan Isakov who can actually write a tune, man. And this album, Evening Machines, is just such a beautiful piece of art. And I'm so amazed by people who can do this. I really, and Denny is one of them, just can write beautiful songs, and I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they aren't one-trick ponies, because they can write songs that are actually different from each other. And they are beautiful and lush and profound. And so it is with Gregory Alan Isakov's Evening Machines, which is a 2018 record. He's got a bunch of records out, man. And if you're into kind of the Iron and Wine sort of thing, I don't know if you know Iron and Wine, these acoustically based singer-songwriters with bands. And that's my jam, dude, as a drummer, okay? I have this cognitive dissonance all the time about what a drummer's supposed to be based on what gets presented on Instagram, which is as many notes as you can possibly play in as short a time as possible, and as intricate as you can possibly make them. And what I kind of like to do, which is play 2 and 4, and maybe not even use a hi-hat if I don't have to. You know what I mean? Like, I really indulge and enjoy the simplicity, but it's also evocative. That's the thing. And then you're playing tunes like Isakov writes that are so freaking evocative, man, emotional, And as a drummer playing along with that stuff and contributing to the evocation, contributing to the emotion of the tune is what I'm into, man. Funny thing popped up on my Facebook memories just today, man. It was a throwback to 2017. And it was a little, I don't know, 15 or 20 second clip of me recording a part for the Nimue EP that I played on that came out in 2017, which is a 6-song EP. It's on my website. You can go listen. Nimue is the great Anne Monez, who is maybe the most talented singer I've ever played with. She is just unreal. And she and I started this band Nimue back in, would have been 16, I guess. And then we were recording in 2017. And it's her music, and she and I started the band, and then we brought players in, and then we recorded this stuff. And there was a clip of me recording the title track to the record, which it was kind of self-titled, I think. So we called it Nimue, spelled differently than the name Nimue. And I'm going to get wrapped up in that. We were recording the song Nimue, which is a really, like, there's like a Celtic vibe happening, spooky, kind of almost like acoustic goth, a lot of production happening, a lot of noise in the background, you know, a lot of like really vibey, atmospheric stuff happening. I really like this EP, by the way. It's, I think, some of the best drumming I've done. And you might listen to it and say, what do you mean? But I know what's going on in there that maybe you're not hearing. Anyways, you know, the part that we were recording that's in the clip is just like mallets on the floor tom, snares turned off, you know, this little kind of rhythm. And that's become, I guess, kind of a signature of mine, such as I have one. But it's like vibey, atmospheric singer-songwriter music. And the Gregory Alan Isakov sounds a lot like that. I'm going to point out a few things. I was going to go track by track through this, but I'm already running out of time here. So, you know, if you're into beautiful, lush, alt singer-songwriter music and you need a kind of emotional release, doesn't have to be anger, doesn't have to be jumping up and down. Now, when we were talking AC/DC, I said, put this on and jump up and down and it's a release. Well, in this case, put on Gregory Alan Isakov, you know, and just let it wash over you, man. Just let it wash over you. Put it on in your headphones and just listen to it. This is an album that demands to be listened to, okay? Not background music. The listening application here is headphones, dark, glass of wine maybe, or, you know, like nice speakers, dark, glass of wine maybe. And just listen. When is the last time you listened to music, man? Like sat down and actually listened to a record? There is a release in this record because it's emotional and it's in some ways, I was about to say overwrought, but that's not true because Gregory Alan Isakov sings with such subtlety. And as, you know, I talk sometimes about wanting to front a band, wanting to come out from behind the kit a la Dave Grohl and front a band. This is maybe the kind of band I'm talking about because this kind of understated, quiet vocal style, very intimate, I think is what I could maybe do. Might be too much of a goofball, but I think I could maybe pull that off. And that's what I get from this record. So, you know, the album opens with a song called Birth. B-E-R-T-H. That's clever right off the bat, man. These singer-songwriter cats are clever, man. They're poets, man. They're artists. Birth, B-E-R-T-H. But it's got connotations, man. Like a birth, like a harbor, like a safe haven, like home. But also birth, B-I-R-T-H. Traumatic, chaos, newness, life. New life comes from chaos, man. That's the silver lining around what's happening down south right now. New comes from that. And you hope that the new is good, not worse, right? But new comes from chaos. And so you have, you know, it's an appropriate song for the world we live in right now. Seeking safe harbor, identifying safe harbor, but also birthing kind of into a new reality, a new life. Even if it's not a new world entirely, for a lot of us, it's a new life. And you can surrender to that new life, friends, and it can be okay. Birth is a wonderful song, super just understated vocals. He sings so quietly and so kind of matter-of-factly. But the way the chords work in all of these tunes are just evocative and emotional. They are beautiful. It's a beautiful record, man. And it demands you to actually listen to it. There's profundity here, man, and Birth is an example of that. And then the song San Luis, one of these kind of, again, quiet acoustic guitar songs, Reminds me of a Bon Iver tune. Do you know the Bon Iver song Stax? Stax was on one of the older Bon Iver records when it was Bon Iver and not the sort of modern genius Bon Iver. Remember how I talked about McCartney being a genius record? Can be in some ways inscrutable. The last couple of Bon Iver records have been genius records. And in some ways, just way too weird for me. But the first couple of Bon Iver records were more like indie rock, alt rock kind of tunes, and they made more sense to me. And there's a song on one of them called Stax, which is just such a gorgeous song. This song, San Luis, reminds me of that. And then, partway through, the drums begin to come in. Just really quiet, very understated. I would love to play this kind of stuff, man. Because I can just feel being wrapped up in the emotion of it. And as a player on stage, that must be amazing. And this stuff must be so great live. It must be so great live. In my mind, I can hear the thousands, like the cheering coming in at certain spots. You can hear that if you've ever been to a show. You know when that happens. And there's an electricity and a vibe when that happens, especially if it's one of these quiet tunes. And everybody's being kind of affected by it. And San Luis is like that. And I am amazed by people who can write melodies. I don't seem to be able to do that, I'm good at writing bluesy rock songs that you can sort of swing around to. But these subtle tunes with actual melodies, like San Luis, amazing stuff. It's such a great tune. Such a great songwriter, all right? And we get to Southern Star comes next. It's a bigger, louder kind of tune, but there's like violin happening. Sounds like it would be in a commercial, like that Strumbellas tune that was in the commercial. It was a Strumbellas, right? Spirits, maybe? I don't remember. I once interviewed a member of the Strumbellas. That was a fun thing. Sounded like he was still recovering from the night before. You know what I mean? Anyway, San Luis, Southern Star, reminds me of a Strumbellas tune. So if you're into Strumbellas, you get the vibe I'm going for. And then there's like Powder comes in with what feels like this reverb on the snare drum. Which is cool, man. Just a cool song. And I'm going to jump over a couple here because time is flying by here. But I want to talk about the song Was I Just Another One? Just another one of these quiet acoustic songs, but this is poetry, man. When was the last time you were like genuinely affected by lyrics? Do you even listen to the lyrics, man? This is why you got to sit down with your headphones and a glass of wine in the dark and just listen to this tune. And listen to the lyrics. We were kids out in the desert, or birds running across the sun. Did I stumble through your darkness, or was I just another one? Dude, I'm a writer, okay? Like, I write stuff. I'm a blogger. I've written novels. Poetry is a whole other game, man. And watching somebody like Gregory Alan Isakov drop bombs of poetry like that, set to music, stunning. John K. Samson. Someday we're going to do a John K. record. John K. Samson, best known as the frontman songwriter of the Weaker Thans, Winnipeg's finest. See the interview with Jason Tate, episode number 4, drummer. John K. Samson is that. A poet of a lyricist set to music. And Gregory Alan Isakov is that too. We get to the song Caves. Caves is probably my favorite tune on the record. It's got this amazing deep groove, man. Deep pocket. And it's a nice standout because so many of the other songs are so kind of lush and quiet. And then Caves has more of a backbeat happening, It's a bit of a banger in the context of this record. And, we go back to this concept of a record, Not just a throwaway single, not just a one and done. It has a place in the middle of this record, of this wider piece of art. It occupies a space, a transitional kind of space musically, right? There's some thought goes into this, man. It's called sequencing. What songs go where, okay? And Caves, oh man. Did I hear something break? Was that your heart or my heart? Like when the earth shakes, then the silence that follows. Ever been through an earthquake, kids? I have. Oh, yeah. Japan gave me lots of fun things, including couple of nice little tremors. Japan, very volcanic, man. You know, it's all hills and little mountains and active volcanoes. We lived across the bay from one, Sakurajima. Remember to say it with the Quentin Tarantino voice. Sakurajima. Sakurajima, a live active volcano. You could go and take the ferry across through all the jellyfish and sit in the hot springs. It would spew ash all over the city. People had snow brushes in their cars, not for the snow, but for the ash to wipe off their cars, right? If you ever felt an earthquake, dude, that is not a cool feeling, all right? Like, stuff starts shaking, and you very quickly, just like the anxiety, realize you ain't in control anymore, man. And then there is a silence that follows. There's this moment of collective inhale. And then it's held for a few seconds after the earthquake is over, where you're like, is that it? Is something going to fall down? What's going to happen here? There is a silence that follows when the earth shakes. Gregory Alan Isakov knows that, and his song Caves is freaking great. Probably put that in the show notes too, so you can check that out. There's a wonderful lyric in the song Chemicals. You know, this is like, I described this in my notes as a coffee shop tune. You know, if you're sitting at Starbucks or some really, hip kind of coffee shop, they've always got cool music playing and you're never sure quite who that was. This tune, Chemicals, is one of those tunes. There's a lyric in there. You saw her bathing in the creek. Now you're jealous of the water. Hello! Dude, right? You saw her bathing in the creek and now you're jealous of the water. That's genius, man. I'm a word guy. Okay, I'm a word guy. Not a great lyricist. Not a great poet, but I do know some. Check out my interview with Chris Banks. I love the poetry in these lyrics, man. This dude is an artist. We go to the song Dark, 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 which is, oh man. Dark, 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 which is one of my other super duper favorites on this, right? Howl at the Half Moon Radio Queen. She's all smoke, she's all nicotine. Oh, dude, that's so cool. Gregory Alan Isakov. Dude, I love your lyrics, man. She's all smoke, she's all nicotine. How evocative is that? Can you picture this woman? She's all smoke, she's all nicotine. Man, I can picture her. Maybe you picture like a Helena Bonham Carter in Fight Club. Sort of this loose cannon chick. Or maybe you picture like some really cool indie person. You know those super cool indie people? They wear like toques. You know what I mean? And they smoke cigarettes. I can picture that. I can picture her in a cafe. I can picture her in a diner. Like a 1950s diner, man. And the chairs are like the back ends of cars. Something like from Pulp Fiction, you know? She's all smoke, she's all nicotine. Love that, man. Too Far Away is the next tune, and Too Far Away is just another one, man. Just another beautiful freaking song. If you are into beautiful freaking songs that have vibe, that have emotion, that are evocative, I'm going to keep using that word evocative because it fits so well on this record. You do need to check out Evening Machines by Gregory Alan Isakov, all right? You need to listen to this record because this tune, Too Far Away, evokes an emotion. You know, when I talked about sitting back and letting the record wash over you, this is the tune where I made that note, Too Far Away. We talked about surrender to something higher, surrender to something beyond. This is, you know, music like this can be the conduit to that. You know, when you listen to this and you let the emotion come, you can give it over so much more easily. You can just relax into this. You can just let this come over you and take you to a place that maybe isn't too far away, you know? And it's another one of those tunes where live, it must be transcendent. It must be like a religious experience live. And I want to play it, man. I want the live experience of this tune, but I don't want it in the crowd. I want to be on the stage. I want that live experience, man. And I want to watch it happen in the crowd. I want to see it ripple, you know? I don't often watch the crowd. I make a point. At a certain point, I began to make a point of looking at the crowd more from the drum set. Now, a lot of times, you kind of got cymbals in the way or a singer It's why the drummer's never in any of the live photos, man, because the singer's always in the way. It's okay, man. This ain't an ego trip. But I made a point at a certain point in time of actually looking at the audience and trying to take mental pictures. Because you just never know, man. You just never know if you're ever going to get a chance to play a crowd like this, or a room like this, or at all, as COVID has taught us musicians. And I would like to see the crowd from the drum set experiencing this tune Too Far Away. Then we go to Where You Gonna Go? And all I've written on here as a note for this song, Where You Gonna Go, is, dude, it's so dark and beautiful, it's almost too much. That's not a bad lyric. That's not a bad lyric, guys. Can you hear that in the song? It's so dark and beautiful, it's almost too much. Why, maybe I have the soul of a poet too. I just got to write songs about other people's songs. But I only know 2 riffs, and they're all big rock and roll blues riffs, so, I don't know if the poetry of the lyrics fits quite with that vibe of a tune. Maybe if I didn't plug the guitar into the amp and immediately go for the distortion. Maybe I'm setting myself up sonically to only produce a certain type of tune. I don't know. I'm new at the writing thing, even though I've been writing tunes for bands. It's only like 10. So not a lot of track record there, you know what I'm saying? Like they threw away, I forget which record I was thinking about when I was doing the music trivia thing. It was like Beyonce or something had 50 tunes written for a record. I don't know if she writes them. I don't know. It's like people throw away 50 tunes for the record. We wrote 45 songs for the album and then picked 8. Dude, 8 is my whole output. You better use them all or there's no record. You know what I mean? Album ends with Wings in All Black. Beautiful acoustic closer to the record. And dude, I've taken way longer than I intended to talk about all of this, but Gregory Alan Isakov's record Evening Machines is worth it. Go and freaking listen to it. Go to my website. That's john-huff.com. And I will put some of this music in the show notes. I'll put some Bon Iver in the show notes. And I got to close, man. I got to close. I got to get on with it. You got to get on with your life. You got to get on with maybe looking at starting a project, dealing with some stuff, or reversing your thinking on what's going on here and flipping it over to what good thing might come, what good life, what good new life might come out of what's happening here. True confession. Apart from Gregory Alan Isakov's record, had no idea really what I might talk about here today, man, and wondered if there would be an episode at all as a consequence. But here we are. We've gone even too long, so sometimes you just got to sit down at the desk and begin, man, and you never know what might come out. I hope you're doing okay. If you're dealing with the anxiety, there are ways to cope. And there ain't no shame in having it. There ain't no shame in feeling not okay, man, because nothing's okay right now. Do not normalize what's not okay. See somebody if you gotta. Listen to good music. Take on a project. Remember, it's the anxiety talking. You feel out of control, it's because you are out of control. Meaning you are not in control. The anxiety will take you over like a freaking ghost, man. Like a demon. And then you'll know when you're back in control again because you'll feel like, dude, I was not myself for a while. It's going to be okay and it can be okay, all right? Let's try and stay optimistic. Let's try and see the opportunities in the crisis. Let's try and imagine that the world that's falling down, we can rebuild into one that's much better, even if that's just your own little personal world, man. Hang in. Let me know how you're doing. And, dude, send me some records to listen to. Tell me what I should be checking out for the old spinning segment. And if you need a release, Gregory Alan Isakov, Evening Machines. Thank you, Denny, for the recommendation. Thank you to each of you for listening. I'll catch you on the next one, and check you later. Thank you once again, gentle listener, for taking in today's show. If you want to know more about the program, go to www.john-huff.com. That's john-huff.com and click on podcast. You can also find the show on Facebook at The John Huff Podcast. If you're an Instagram person, you can find me at JW_Huff. If you're a Twitter person, you can find me at @JWSHuff. No matter where you listen to the show, please do me a big favor and leave a rating and review. Preferably a positive one. That's all the time we have for today, but I'll be back very soon. Until then, keep your wits about you and remember, good things happen when you put yourself out there. Bye for now. Howl at the half moon radio queen. She's all smoke, she's all nicotine.